This is a DJI Action 2, a tiny camera with a massive spec sheet that could make this a GoPro killer. But can the Action 2 live up to its own hype? It's time to get this camera on a selfie stick and take it for a run.
Day.
13.25 miles, 8 minutes, 21 seconds per mile, 144 beats per minute today. Going for a taper week, a long run. I've got the CIM marathon in just 1 week. So I did 10 miles easy and 3 miles at marathon pace. A perfect way to test out this brand new camera from DJI, the Action 2, because it gave me an hour and 50 minutes out there on the run at 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, before I tell you how this camera did after just this first run, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a camera that I purchased myself. I'll also be talking about the GoPro Hero 10, which is another camera that I purchased myself. No one's paying me to make this video or to use either of these cameras, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the DJI Action 2. First, let's go over some specs. There's a couple of different bundles that you can buy with this camera, and this camera is like a modular system, which is something we've seen before. There's kind of like the lens unit, and this lens unit does have a touch screen on the back, and it connects magnetically to a base unit. And it has a really robust magnet on here with latches attached, so you can attach it to this power module, which is the module that I have. There's another module that's also available that has another screen on it, so that way you can kind of put the screen on the front as well as having the regular screen back here. So if you want to use it kind of in selfie mode, you can do that. I opted to go with just the regular power module, which gives you an extra like 2 times the life's worth of battery that you can charge with, plus an SD card slot. Also in this power module, you get the attachment to put this on a GoPro mount. That's this little part right here that lets me put this whole thing on a selfie stick, which is how I used it today. This power module also came with a lanyard, which is like this thing that you can wear around your neck with a magnet, so that way you can wear it right on your chest. It also came with a USB-C to USB-A charging cable, and that's how you charge the whole thing through the power module, which has a USB-C port right on the side. The power module also has an additional kind of shutter button or power button, the same as the button that's on the top of the base unit. This base unit has a 1/1.7 inch sensor, which makes it a larger sensor than what GoPro has been using in their cameras for a while now. And that lens is at a f2.8 aperture with 155 degrees of viewing angle, which is extremely wide. In terms of what this camera is capable of capturing with those hardware specs, it can shoot up to 4K at 120 frames per second, which is just a magic sweet spot for me. I love shooting in slow motion, and I've been loving being able to shoot at 4K at 120 frames per second ever since the GoPro Hero 10 came out earlier this year. It's waterproof to 10 meters. It's also dustproof, and it has Gorilla Glass on both the front and the back to protect both the touchscreen as well as the lens. In terms of stabilization, there's 2 types of electronic image stabilization. There's Rocksteady, which is the brand name that DJI has given to its stabilization, and there's also Horizon Steady, which is kind of like Horizon Lock with GoPro, which makes it so that way, like even if you kind of tilt it a little bit this way and that way, the camera can correct the image and make it look like it's being held like relatively stable. In terms of recording, this entire unit is self-contained. There's internal storage built in. You have 22.4 gigabytes of accessible storage, which translates to about 20 minutes of total recording time at 4K at 120 frames per second, which I think is longer than the battery is going to last. It's a 580 milliamp hour battery, but you can definitely extend not only the storage with an SD card, but also the battery, which is a 1300 milliamp hour battery in this power module. In terms of weight, This is where it gets really exciting for me. Not only is it a small form factor, especially when you just click it magnetically right onto the selfie stick. This camera by itself weighs 56 grams and the power module weighs almost exactly the same at 56.6 grams. And even with the additional weight of like this GoPro mount part right here, that makes it much smaller in weight than the super hefty GoPro Hero 10, which is the heaviest GoPro that GoPro has ever made, which comes in at 153 grams or exactly the same weight as the GoPro Hero Max, that 360 camera that they came out with 2 years ago. So those are the specs that at least matter to me as someone that shoots action footage and vlog footage, mostly of the running variety. It shoots all those other kind of things like photographs and time lapses and all those other things that I almost never ever use, but those are the specs that matter to me. So what was it like to be able to film with this? I'd say that it was great in terms of the lightness of it and being able to use it. In terms of the way the images looked, I like the wide image. The rock steady stabilization is great. The images are very, very contrasty. So if you like that, then I think that you're going to really love the image quality that you're getting out of this. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to, but ultimately my eye is drawn toward it. Plus, I normally don't like a very wide field of view when I'm shooting action camera footage, especially when I'm doing product shots, like using the shoes or any of the clothes that I'm wearing. But the way that they're doing it here, there's two kind of like field of view modes. One is wide and then one is standard or de-warped. I set mine to standard so that there be less distortion around the edges. So you're getting really wide without getting fisheye. And so I actually think I kind of like it. And if you're going to be shooting a lot of video stuff or shooting horizontal video, but then cropping in vertical to put it on, say, like Instagram stories or on TikTok, having it be a little extra wide actually turns out to be pretty good. I'm actually kind of really liking it. So I'm really happy with the image quality that I'm getting from this device, and I'm amazed that I'm getting out of something this small. But the price that we're paying for it is the temperature regulation issues. So one thing that you'll notice about this camera, if you're even using it, just turning it on, figuring out the menus, that kind of thing, is that it gets hot really, really fast. In fact, they'll tell you that when you're selecting 4K, 120 frames per second, there's like a little ticker that goes along the screen in the back that tells you that at 25 degrees Celsius, you're gonna get 4 minutes of recording time in like one continuous clip. That's as much as you're gonna get before like the default like heat settings will shut the thing down. So it's has a hard time regulating heat. It also has a hard time maintaining heat as well. And so today it was 30 degrees Fahrenheit out there and I'm running. So I'm like, you know, the thing is hitting a lot of wind and it was a windy day out there as well. So this thing got cold really, really fast. And after just about 10 minutes of running, before I got uncomfortable at all, I still was fine temperature wise. But at 10 minutes of running, all of a sudden it went to kind of like the low temperature mode, right? So what that meant was when I turned it on, it gave me like a little warning that says the temperature is too low. And so it's gonna start recording, but it won't turn on the screen on the back for me until the camera maybe warms up a little bit first. So I typically was just relying on this tiny little blinking light up here in the upper left-hand corner, and it has like a series of beeps. It's kind of like trying to talk to R2-D2. Beeps once to let you know it's recording, beeps twice to let you know it's stopped recording, and then it buzzes and beeps to let you know it's going into like power down mode because it's been too long in between clips. So there was a little bit of a language barrier, at least for me in the beginning in this first time using this camera, but I think I kind of figured it out. But I was using it mainly that way without being able to see the rear screen at all, and I was relying just on the blinking light, and that still pretty much worked for about the first kind of like hour. Then we started getting into like hour 15, hour 30, and then like it stopped telling me that it was in low temperature mode at all. And I wasn't even sure what kind of clips I was getting. Looking back at the footage now, it was recording sometimes, and then other times I thought I was recording, like trying to understand the beeps, but apparently I wasn't. And so then my beeps got all out of sync. And so when I thought I was recording, I wasn't. And when I thought I wasn't recording and just running, that's when I was recording. So all sorts of like kind of weird, like, you know, getting to know you user interface issues were kind of happening with the temperature. But I also think the camera was failing. And so even when I could get it to record, it was dropping frames and just not recording stuff. So I lost like most of the interesting footage from today. So the first 10 miles of the run were easy. So just kind of like jogging along. The last 3 miles were the harder effort, running at my race pace for the marathon coming up in a week. And that's really the footage that I wanted to have. I have none of that footage because the camera just stopped working after a while because I think it just got too cold. So that was, for me, a really big problem because right now the filming date of this was November 28th. So we're at the way beginning of winter here in Chicago. We've got months of winter left. And if I think I can only get like maybe an hour's worth of being outside time, not that I'm recording it for an hour, but just being outside in an hour, that's kind of like a big problem for me. And so for a lot of you guys, that's going to end the video because I'm not sure that I could really recommend it for a lot of people if you're going to be using it for running, cycling, anything where you're going to be outside for more than like 15 minutes at a time during the winter, which is a shame because I really do like this camera in terms of what it can do. I even gave it to the kids today, took them to the park after my run and let them run around with it. I'll show you some of that vlog footage as well. I also went to the grocery store with it. So let me show you some kind of just daily vlog footage using it more of as like a regular vlog camera rather than an action camera. I had much better results, at least temperature wise with that. And let's take a look at that so you can get a sense of like what that footage kind of might look like put together. So I had a lot of fun using this camera with the kids, and the kids had a lot of fun using it too. We didn't run into, I don't think, hardly any temperature issues, even though we were outside for about an hour and a half today. So like at non-running speeds, when the wind from running and just the windiness wasn't there in the afternoon, and also it was a little bit later in the day, so it was a little bit warmer. We had better results temperature-wise using this camera, although I did have the base unit with it too. And then I was also putting it in my pocket in my jacket when I wasn't using it, so it stayed a little bit warmer, but we were able to use it. Plus I was able to give it to the kids, and a testament to the stabilization that this camera has is even when the kids were running around with it and they don't know how to do like walking a little bit more stable or keep cameras smooth. My older daughter does a little bit by now, but the younger one, no, she just runs with it. And I still feel like the camera footage was really good. And again, I like kind of like the high contrast punchiness of the colors, especially in the grocery store as well, like that really wide angle and all the contrast with the colors of the grocery store, I think were really like a lot of fun for me to watch and edit. So like I'm liking all that footage. One of the things that we did see in terms of temperature was that like when the kids were using the camera for a little while, two things happened. One, they filled up the internal storage on this real fast. And so even though there's 22.4 gigs of storage, I think that the files this thing creates at 4K 120 are much bigger than the files that say like the GoPro creates. So that 22.4 gigs of storage got eaten up real fast, even though I didn't take a lot of clips that I wanted to during my run today. So like my run footage and my grocery store and playing with kids at the park footage filled up the storage of this thing at 4K and 120 frames per second real fast. The other thing was that at one point, I think the camera like freaked out. Maybe because it was cold or maybe because it was like nearing full capacity in terms of storage, but it kind of froze and I couldn't turn it off, but it was kind of still on as well. And the gyros were still working. So I was getting a power icon on the back, letting me, which is something that flashes on real quick when it lets you know it's powering down. But that power icon stayed on. And then whenever I turned the camera, the power icon would rotate depending on which way I thought was up. So like it was frozen and it wasn't. Eventually, like I was able to like, I kept kind of long pressing the shutter button or the power button, which is what I had been doing before, and it didn't do anything. But I kept doing that later on, and eventually I got the thing to power off and then power back on again. So it didn't like completely freeze, but it just kind of like stopped working for a little bit, and I was a little bit confused. And I think that's kind of like a good like metaphor for like kind of the entire experience right now, because then once you get the footage, you've got to figure out a way to get it to somewhere where you want to edit it. And either you're going to edit it in the app on your phone, or you're going to try to get it either onto an SD card or get it somehow onto a laptop so you can edit it for, say, a YouTube video. So there's a couple of ways to do that, but they all require connecting the camera unit to a power module or like the other selfie screen module. And so once you connect those, then this thing has a USB port. So you can connect it directly from the USB port with the camera to a laptop, and then you can just see it like an external drive. Now, when the video files are on the camera body, the top part itself, and it has to come through the power module and then go through the USB-C port to your laptop, the transfer speeds, I think, are a little bit slow. They're not as fast as, say, reading it off a card or reading it off an external drive. So that is a little bit annoying given how large the files are that are coming out of this camera. The other thing you could do is you can move the files from this standalone unit to the SD card. And I've put an SD card in this one here, a 64 gigabyte SD card. And then you could just slot it into the bottom, get into the menus, click on the micro SD card icon, and then select some options to get it to copy the files from the camera to the SD card. And that's slow. It takes a while. And so then from there, then you can eject this micro SD card and then connect it to your laptop and then bring the files over. So there's like a lot of steps to get it from like camera to laptop. The other way to do it is to get it from camera to the app, and there's a DJI app on the phone, just kind of like with the GoPro, there is the Quick app, or it used to be called like the GoPro app. Similar thing that you can kind of preview clips and quickly get them from the camera like onto your phone and then up to social media if you want to work really quickly that way. That's typically something that I also do for my Instagram stories. But I feel like the app is just not finished. It's not ready. I had so many problems with the app. So one of the problems was I was trying to preview my videos from the camera to figure out which ones do I want to spend the time to download wirelessly from the app to the phone. And when you click on one, it tells you it's a low res preview, which I would expect, and that's totally fine. And if you hit the play button, it doesn't play. It just kind of like jittered a couple times, and then it would make the app crash. So like that was pretty frustrating. So then I reopen the app, reconnect to the camera, then go look at my clips again, and then I could click on them, and instead of hitting press play to play a low res preview, I had to scrub along the bottom to kind of fast forward and see, okay, this is the video, this was that clip, that's the one that I want. I'd have to remember kind of which ones that I want, and maybe I could use some of the images to jog my memory just a little bit, no pun intended. So that was kind of annoying. But then once I downloaded from the camera to the app, that's when it got even more annoying still, because then it's not in my Photos app. So I can't directly then start uploading it to Instagram stories or whatever. I have to then re-export it from the DJI app to then get it to go to Photos. And for me, it usually took at least 2 tries. It would just fail the first time. For a lot of the clips that I picked, it took like 2 times for that file to then make it actually into my Photos. And the annoying thing is that's the only option that I have. There's no option of anything that I can do in the DJI app. You can't adjust the frame rates. You can't even change the frame orientation. So like if I wanted to take the horizontal video, crop in and make it vertical, I can't do that. And also trim the edges from the clip. So like there's just a lot more functionality in the GoPro app, the Quick app, than there is in the DJI app. And in fact, for today, for the Instagram stories that I made for today, what I did was I connected to the camera, downloaded them to the DJI app. From the DJI app, I then exported them to the Photos app. Then I opened up the GoPro app, imported the videos from my Photos app that are originally from this camera, put them into the GoPro software, then was able to reframe, crop in and reframe to a vertical, and then I exported that back to Photos so that I could post it to Instagram stories. A lot of extra steps that I feel like should be very easy to do in the DJI app. They just aren't there. So I just feel like that app is just not finished, it's not ready. And overall, that's kind of like, it leaves me feeling like ultimately a little bit disappointed in the day. I feel like to really get the usability that I want, I have to use this second module, which then like makes it it's still thinner and lighter than the GoPro Hero 10, but it's still big enough that as if I'm going to carry something this big, I may as well carry this. I don't have to worry about it quite as much. This, I'm worrying about like a lot more things. And with just the power module that I have, I don't have the second screen up front. Not that I always need it, but it makes it a lot easier for me to see like, am I recording right now or not, without having to rely on a little blinking red light. So like, there's just trade-offs. There's things that are great, things that are still not quite there. Cold weather is definitely hard on equipment. I get it. But I feel like this is so close to being a GoPro killer. I think if they could fix that cold weather and I guess hot weather or like hot temperature problem with this, then I think that they have like a real killer product on their hands. But with the way it's performing so far out of the box, I'm not sure I can really recommend it. Those are my thoughts on the DJI Action 2. If you have any questions about this camera or the GoPro Hero 10, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to talk to you down there. Or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to be able to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?